Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me, as always, is...
Because she's weak! Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we are talking about The Craft. The Croft.
The Croft?
The Croft.
The Croft. Are we going to be English? Paul, for no reason.
We might.
Posh.
We might, yeah.
Posh even.
Maybe there's like an English version of The Craft. You know, overseas. Or it's based on something that was...
is that where England is overseas? I hadn't realized. Okay.
Across the pond.
Across the pond.
Across the pond.
They just call it The Croft. The Croft UK.
Yeah.
Yes.
What
are we doing?
We're doing The Craft, and it was released
Yeah, we are.
May 3rd, 1996. This is
Oh my god.
pre-Scream.
Yeah.
And it features Neve Campbell and Skeet Ulrich of
Crazy.
Scream fame. But it also
Crazy.
has Fairuza Balk.
You're looking at me like, is that how I pronounce it?
What?
You hesitated. You were like, it also has...
No, I know how to pronounce
Fairuza Balk.
Balk. Did I mispronounce it?
No, you didn't mispronounce it. You just paused like you were hesitating.
I'm actually
You were
more...
like,
okay, I'm maybe more hesitant to pronounce. Is it Robin Tunney or Tooney? How do you say it?
I've only ever heard Robin Tunney. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Robin Tunney and Rachel True and some other people, but that's basically
Lots of people.
Yeah, lots of people in this. And what are your thoughts?
Oh God. Where should we begin? Do you want a premise?
Well, I want your thoughts.
Okay.
That's why. If I wanted a
Sometimes you've
premise, I'd
forgotten,
ask for
so-
a premise. Yeah.
All right. My thoughts. God, it's a long story. I have a curious history with this movie, but let's just suffice it to say, as of right now, I like it a lot. What about you?
Oh, yeah. Same. And what I find fascinating about this movie is that it kind of started the 90s teen horror trend, because I don't like nothing like, you know, everyone credits Scream for that, and in all fairness, Scream did start it because everything that came after was very much a copy of Scream, but since this predated Scream, it was kind of like, it's still part of that ilk of everything else, but it's its own thing. Because it's kind of wedged right in the middle of the 90s, so it's still kind of, you know, in the ballpark of, you know, what we were getting before, but it was like the transitioning, and it was like the start of that, you know, high school era. Like, just like everything about this is so 90s, from like the soundtrack to the look of everything. And
Yeah.
it has a very unique trapped in time quality about it, and every time I watch this, like, it never changes for me. Like, I don't have nostalgia for this like the same way that I would for something like Bride of Chucky or Halloween H2O, where it's just like, I loved those movies so much at the time, and now I look at them and I'm just like, oh, this is aged poorly. But this movie, it's just like, it's always how I remembered it, and every time I watch it, I don't want to say I enjoy it more each time I watch it, but every time I watch it, I enjoy it the same. And that's always like a good same.
Right. No, that is so interesting that you say that, because for me, I guess we'll just get into it. I started on kind of, I don't even know if it's called shaky ground, but just like less unsure ground with this movie when it first got released, because I was 15 going on 16 when it got released, and when it was, you know, I remember the trailers and the commercials on the television that were run relentlessly. They really promoted the shit out of this movie. They wanted you to see it. Yeah. And it was any show I was watching, it was, you know, on the commercials and everything like that. So I got to see Fairuza Balk say over and over and over again, "We are the weirdos, mister," and grin, and then The Craft. And it felt at the time to me, without seeing the movie, I didn't go to the theaters and see it. I saw it on cable maybe a year later. But at the time, just from all of that, the fact that it was being like pushed into my face as much as it was, and because I was a teenager very much at that particular time in my life, I felt like the most rebellious thing I could do would be to avoid something that seemed so
mainstream.
Well, also intentionally crafted, no pun intended,
Sure.
for like consumption from my demographic. Does that make sense? It felt like it was marketed for me. Of course it was the last thing I wanted to see.
You were a little rebel.
I was just starting to like develop kind of like an adult taste in cinema, and I was forming this new palette, and something like that felt like kid stuff to me at the time. Now, as the years have progressed and I've returned to it every few years or so, I have kind of a similar, because it's not like when I finally did see it like a year later or whatever, I did like it. Like I remember just sitting there and it's like, I'll just watch this for like a few minutes just to see if I like it. Oh, that's not, oh, they're such bitches. You know, I would get into it, but not even like be cognizant of the fact that I was enjoying myself. I just kind of like watched it in a double parked fashion, always ready to turn the channel the second it turned me off, you know, or lost me. And it never did. I always watched it through to the end anytime I stopped on it. But as I get older, I recognize more and more in it. The more I love those four actresses in particular that you named, and the more I think, maybe this is just because we just finished watching Buffy season 5 last week, but the more I kind of wish it had been a series instead of a movie, because it had the potential to continue developing after all that. It needn't end necessarily with, you know, Nancy going nuts and the other two losing their powers and everything like that. It would have been interesting to watch them all have to keep going to school with each other after a lot of these things happen. And I don't know.
Question for you before you get into a premise. Did you see the sequel? I don't even know what was.
No, I still haven't. Because nobody seemed to be enthusiastic about it at all.
No
so
one
I didn't even
did.
bother. Did you see it?
No, I missed it when because this was like it was released in the middle of COVID or the beginning of COVID, and like theaters had just shut down, so Blumhouse had released it on streaming, and like the only way I could access it was like VOD, and it was like $20 or something, and I'm just like, I mean, I could have seen it in the theater, but there's something about that, it just felt like I don't want to see this. And all the reviews that I had watched said it was bad, and like really the only connection to it doesn't show up until the end, and even then it's just like it's pointless. So the whole experience just sounded like it was shitty, and it didn't continue, you know, the potential that you're talking about if it like tapped into that within a series. But I agree, a series would have been interesting for sure.
At the time, that would have been great.
Another movie that's not like The Craft, just in terms of its subject matter, but I guess like in tone and just sort of like maybe the demographic and just like the time it came out was Fear. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
It's a thriller.
I think I saw it. Parts of it like once.
It's Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon, and he's an older guy who starts to date this high school student played by Reese Witherspoon, and everything seems to be, you know, going swimmingly at first, but he turns out to be like very possessive and kind of psychotic, and it gets messy.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in a while, but it seemed like it was always on TV and like cut down and edited. And I would constantly see it. And it has
Did it have
what?
Did it have that teen movie with the soundtrack kind of vibe?
Absolutely. And I mean, like even the cast, like Alyssa Milano is in it. And then of course like the dad was William Peterson. So I mean, it's just like if anything, if like William Peterson is ever like playing the grown up, it's like, oh, this is so 90s. So I'd be interested in revisiting that one day. But Anyway, what say you with this premise?
All right. Is the usual voice okay?
It's up to you. I mean, well, do you want to do? Well, did you want to do it as like Nancy or?
I don't know if I have a really good.
I
love quoting her, but I don't know if I have a good enough hold on an impression of her. Because she also, this is the thing. Okay, before I get into it, also just Fairuza. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like, which Nancy? Like, there are so many Nancys.
You can even do it as you can do it as Sarah, like just like bored out of her skull and just being like, oh, we're doing another spell, you know?
just back of my throat, like vocal fry. Okay, I'll try it.
Just do whatever you want.
Troubled teen Sarah Bailey has just moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles with her father and stepmother. At her new school, she forms a friendship with a group of girl outcasts who've noted her unusual abilities and are themselves rumored to be witches. As she grows closer to Bonnie, Rochelle, and Nancy, she learns about their worship of a powerful earth deity they call Manon. But shut up. But you're wasting the people's precious time. Sorry. But now I can't get back in it. But will she get in too deep before her friends find irreparable darkness in the craft? That was fun.
Very nice. It was almost like took me back to the Karen, like Judy Greer Karen.
Oh,
like when you
her delivery in Halloween 2018.
Yeah.
I can never
get over the paranoia and
that
neuroses
she has inflicted upon me. Didn't we identify a bunch of moments like that? Oh yeah, we did in Jawbreaker with like Liz is the cat's meow. Now my voice is just sitting there. It's gonna be weird to talk.
Or yeah, where she's just like, oh, I believe you called it ammunition,
if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Kill me like you did, Liz. Jesus Christ. We can do this. Just do this all night. Anyway, okay.
Yeah. See how long it lasts. Anyway.
It'll come back.
Well, no, because I think this is like my favorite moment in the movie. And we talked about this before because we did this on the old podcast. And I noted how when they're like on the beach and they're doing the spell and they're going around in the circle and each one of them is just like guidance from the watchtower of like the north and blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like putting their all into it. And then and they're like this with their arms up in the air. And then you get to Sarah at the end and she's just kind of like, her head is like slumped over. She's like Jesus on the cross. It's just like, and she's like, powers of blah, 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 like players, blah, blah. Like just she's so bored and just not giving it any energy at all. And I think you said it's like it's because she's like it's beneath her. It's like she's so much better that like she doesn't need to do this like juvenile bullshit and it's like and what I noticed that I forgot at the beginning because like Nancy starts off the chant and she says hear me. And then you just hear Sarah, us. And she's like, hear us.
Wow. I mean, did you always see the original three in that particular vein? Like, did you, I mean, of course, you know, there is some kind of gift, some endowment from the get-go that Sarah is a party to that the other three all are kind of like trying to Bogart off of, you know, like just kind of they want a piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Jones.
I mean,
But-
there's several different interpretations of it you could get. I don't know why I'm going into that vocal fry now, but
it's unavoidable.
It's
unavoidable.
once you get in your head. But I mean, you can look at it as, did they conjure her? Because at the beginning, like the movie opens up with the three of them, I guess, like calling upon that, they need the fourth member, because that's like when we see them in the school, that's what they're talking about, like, oh, who's our fourth gonna be? So just like they were manifesting her, and then that's the opening credits, is just like the heavens just sent her flying in on an airplane, and she arrives.
Okay. See, that's interesting, because it's certainly set up that way, and that's another thing about this movie, is every time I watch it, I feel like I'm watching it. Even though it develops for me, like my affection for it, I think, grows deeper, and I appreciate it. But I know what you mean about it's always the same movie, because I always feel like I'm watching it for the first time again, experiencing it for the first time. But so this is the first time I've really kind of like even thought about things like, well, what was the source? This is like Ghostface all over, like who is Ghostface when all over again for me, because now I'm thinking like, if there's evidence of them being successful in the past, as far as their witchcraft and everything like that, then they seem so genuinely freaked out when the homeless guy with the snake finally, bites the dust in the middle of the street. And they're all running away, and they're kind of screaming, and just going like, "We did it! We can make things happen!" Everything like that. Now that there's four of us, kind of thing. And
then they sit down on that like nasty couch in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. which I mean, when you're a teenager, you'll sit on anything. I don't mean that. But anyway, just heard that. Didn't mean that. But no, I wonder if they would have had that kind of reaction if they'd had much success in the past. I'm wondering if like that's something they could certainly tell themselves, but they're still at that point like trying to convince themselves that like they have an effect. Like even when the spell starts working for the first time, when they summon the power of Manon and drink of their sister's blood and everything like that, and then things start happening, they're still like shocked, and it's almost like, I don't know, it reminds me of like if the movie had been about anything else, like let's say it was about like contacting the dead, and they all got on a Ouija board, and then all of a sudden things started, like a door creaked a little, like, oh, the door moved, that's proof there's a ghost in the house, we summoned it, like it's that level of kind of like Parker Brothers insanity.
Well,
for me.
in that scene where they're just sitting on that couch, like just out in the open there, because Sarah says to them, sometimes I do, like, I'll think about things like I want it to rain, but then it'll backfire and I'll get like a leaky faucet. So I think that she knows that she has these powers. She just hasn't kind of tapped into them, because like her mother was a powerful witch. So I think that she was kind of blessed with that, just like from birth. And I don't really know what the story is for the others, but like I don't know much about witchcraft other than what I see in like Buffy and The Craft. So who knows, maybe just like these three people, if like their will is powerful enough, and their power to manifest something, if the three of them got together, and then there's this like fourth person that already was endowed with this gift, that they came in, that it would just like they would naturally gravitate towards each other, and then kind of like each feed off of one another's energy. Because I mean, as much as the other three are kind of drawing this power from Sarah, it seems like she's also kind of harnessing it from them, and like and hers is growing because of that. Like they're almost like enabling her to get more powerful, because she's not
almost like
she's
like
not,
they're a gym for her magic muscles.
Like they're all helping each other, and that's like the point, or just like what we find out at the beginning is just like there needs to be four of us just so we can make this work. And so they might very well like each have a certain gift to a degree, but all of it coming together is what kind of skyrockets it for them. And then by the end, it's kind of when Sarah, calls upon the powers of Manon. That it's just like she becomes so powerful at that point that like she doesn't need them, and then once Nancy's out of the picture by the end, and the other two are just like, we don't have our powers anymore, and just like that's nice, I'm fine on my own. So it could have just been a thing that was just like she was seen as the worthy one, and she came out of it with all of her powers, like all the powers. Essentially.
Well, Manon, when Manon finally discovered, like, I guess, or became somewhat more conscious of Sarah's existence, probably thought, well, why am I wasting my time with these bitches? Yeah. And that's why Thoroughly said, okay, you want all the power? You can have it, honey. Like, whatever you want. Like, you're legit. Like, you're the one who knows where the bodies are buried. But
is it pronounced Manon?
Yeah. No, I think it's pronounced... Yeah, I was going to ask you, who decided that the guy, because the way I hear it is that they always pronounce, because it's spelled Manon, but it's always pronounced like they're saying croissant, like French, like. So Manon, like that's Manon, what I hear. Manon. Yeah, Manon.
I thought, Manon. Isn't that like a brand of yogurt?
No, that's Dannon. Dannon.
Dannon. Petite Manon. Or it's like filet mignon.
Filet mignon, yeah, same thing. So
we're calling upon the powers of filet mignon.
But see, these are a couple of things I would have loved. That's hilarious. But no, there's a couple. These are some of the things. Immediately, my imagination in the back of my head, because I'm watching the movie and I'm into the movie, but I'm also thinking like, God, it would have been so great if it had been a series. There would have been time. I would have loved for them to discover that like Manon was actually a feminine or female derivative force, or even the origin of females, just so they're not like deriving all their power from a male entity, like using the word he and everything like that. Like they're so anti-God as a man-made construct. It would have been cool if they could have derived their power from
maybe this was like the mid 90s, so maybe like the pronouns weren't really a big deal back then, but she did describe Manon as like if God and the devil, had a battle against each other, Manon is the stadium. So it was almost like Manon doesn't have a gender. It's just the everything. It's the all powerful being.
Mother Earth.
Well, then that gives it a female.
People, no, I'm still pushing for it. I want. Yeah. I don't know, because I mean, so often I remember I've watched many films, television shows, whatever, with many female friends and female relatives of mine over the years, and the thing that always seems to piss off my friends and family is that anytime a woman kind of like gains some kind of power, you can usually draw it back to its point of origin is because some man taught her. Yeah. And that's almost, without exception. So I don't know, it would have been a nice little touch. And also just little things like you talking about the four of them. It would have been nice if we could have even more clearly defined, well, what kind of a witch are you? Like there's four corners. There are also
good
four
witch
seasons.
Or a bad
there are
witch?
Four. But I mean, also like there's four, but think about how many things there are four of, and think like, okay, so which side of the square are you? And what do you represent, and how can we tie that? I mean, like you and I always do it with the Zodiac, so it would have been interesting to see them do it with like elements and seasons and.
Well, whatnot, I mean, that's an interesting question, but and we can talk about that. But I wanted to ask you because this is. Essentially, I mean, I would say that this is like Mean Girls, but this predates Mean Girls. But
and Jawbreaker.
But I mean, like, it's so very much Mean Girls. I mean, all we needed to have was like Nancy's mother in the apartment, like, because she's like, oh, let's listen to some music, girls, and Nancy just had to be like, Mom, go fix your hair, like. Oh, I love you. You girls keep me so young.
Right, she's Regina George.
Nancy is obviously Regina George, and that would mean that Sarah is Katie Heron.
Yeah.
And I would probably say that Bonnie is Gretchen Wieners. Does that sound about right to you?
I think so. But
And
yeah. Just in terms of what she has access to, she's a little bit more of a chess player as far as, you know, the group, the politics of the group and everything like that than Amanda Seyfried's character is. And that's Rochelle.
Then Rochelle is
Se-
to Karen in
in
Mean Girls. Yeah,
I forgot which one Amanda Seyfried played.
Karen.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I couldn't come up with the name. I'm just explaining. Go
okay,
on.
no, that's fair enough. No, that's I don't know. And I was watching it like with that mindset. It's just like, oh, which one of the, because like we obviously know who like the two main players are, but the secondary ones, which one's Gretchen and which one is Karen? But
among the minions, yeah, because they are more minion-y.
Absolutely. And I love how even like all of the story beats are so similar to Mean Girls as well, of just like how things play out, that I almost want to like, if I ever like had the opportunity to like meet Tina Fey and ask her, like, when you wrote Mean Girls, like, were you at all inspired by The Craft? And just like, because I mean, like, it's the similarities are so blatantly apparent.
With Aaron Samuels, is that his name?
Yes, but I mean, like, even right down to like some of the shots, like them like walking down the quad, and it's just like the same as like them walking down the hallway, and like I said, the scene with the mom, and you're just like, no adults, you know.
And then the turn, the when it all turns. Although
absolutely.
the two minions never abandon. I mean, well, not exactly. It kind of happens differently, but they never abandon their Regina George in order to follow Katie. I guess the closest thing we have resembling that in this movie is just the very end when they're like, "We sorry about trying to kill you. We don't have any powers, do you? Because if you do, we could all, you know, hang."
Well, even at the end, like in the house. Because when Nancy's freaking out, and she's just like, "Go up there, or I'll slit your throat," and then they're just like, "Let's," like, well, they did go up there, and then they saw like the images of them in the mirror, and then they ran out. So they did kind of abandon her there, and there was like a lot of hesitation, because like that's the thing, like they were mean girls in a way, like they knew like, oh, what we're doing right now to Sarah, like it's kind of nasty. But they were going along with it, like they knew about it, but it was just kind of like, well, you know, we're dedicated to our coven, so you know we got to do it. But it did feel a little inconsistent, I guess, like the setup for it, because like there was the scene when Nancy was like driving through all the red lights, or like waiting for them to not waiting, but just like, you know, hoping that they would turn green, or probably not even hoping, but they're in the back seat and they're kind of very cavalier about Sarah's trepidations regarding the whole thing, and she even says like, "Bonnie, you used to be a nice person, but you know now you're just like very conceited," and I forgot, because I thought, oh, that's when she's kind of like out of the group, but then she has the scene like after she is assaulted by Chris, and she runs to Rochelle's house, and they're all very much there for her and they're supportive, and then there's that whole ordeal, and then it's after that they all turn on her.
Well, that's also another thing that, like, I think is an interesting thing to discern between the Mean Girl structure and the Craft. Well, I don't know about structure, but I guess just the path, because what pushes Katie to, like, you know, pursue to be in a position in league with the plastics and everything like that is, you know, she's being pressured by two other people who she considers her actual friends. Whereas in this case, Sarah so desperately wants to be friends with somebody. You know, she is completely alone in the school, and there's something really genuine that I absolutely thrive on watching the four of them as they're becoming friends, and then as they really are friends, like in terms of like caring about each other and everything. Like I think you and I off pod have discussed like my reaction to when Nancy is performing the whatever rites, or I don't even know what the terminology is, but she's working the spell, like trying to like take away the scars from Bonnie, and Bonnie's just sitting there just like, or saying it over and over again and everything like that. And you just see for a moment, I think it's Nancy stops and she just kind of like looks at her and just looks down and looks away and just looks so, maybe uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable in a way that's like, oh my God, I wish I weren't here. It's more like, my friend is in so much pain and it's a lot to absorb. I just wish she wouldn't have to be. I mean, this is all subliminal. Like I'm just, but it just feels like their interactions and their behavior is out of genuine care for each other and a genuine need for each other. And there seems to be a solace that they found. So when they finally do start performing the ritual where they're drinking of each other's blood and everything like that, there's a bond that is palpable that I'm really, really fond of. That again, maybe that's why I want it to be a series also, is just so we can spend more time with that.
I mean, we did get Charmed, if you will.
I didn't even watch the episode I was in.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me that. I did see the first 3 seasons because I remember I found like the box sets real cheap. And I watched all through those. But after Shannon left the show, I was just kind of like, like Rose McGowan came on, but it was so dumb. I'm sorry to anyone who likes Charmed, but I couldn't get into it. Like not the same way that I could with Buffy. But there's definitely a lot of nuance to the Nancy Sarah relationship in particular. And of course, like I think like at a certain point, a lot of what takes over is the jealousy, and I think that's something that Fairuza Balk plays really well into.
I do too.
And especially I think the first time we really see it is in the chapel scene when they've already got Skeet under the spell, and you just see like Rochelle is sitting with Nancy and she's just like, look, it's happening, and Nancy's just like, yeah great, like it's almost like she's come in and she's taking my position as like the head bitch in charge, and it's not sitting right with her, because it's almost like it's
like healed her own wounds from like what transpired between her and Chris too, like, so
absolutely no totally, but I just like Nancy is like one of those friends that's just like her friendship is conditional, like it's like she wants to have Sarah in the group, but it's just like, but you cannot usurp my position here, like I'm the one who's in charge.
I definitely agree with that, but I also think this is why Nancy is fascinating to me, because Fairuza can also play all of this stuff simultaneously, because Sarah starts on incredibly like indiscernible ground with Nancy, because I think half the time she doesn't know whether she's joking or not, like the fact that, and I wouldn't know either. That's one thing I love about also just the introduction of the original 3 is just like the way they are framed. Even they always look to me like the girls the teachers don't want you to hang out with,
the bitches of Eastwick.
And there's something so subtle from like just like posture, like particularly with Bonnie, like the way Neve Campbell just kind of like holds her books in and goes full on kind of like Ali Sheedy Breakfast Club, with her like her strange inertia. And then you've got just wonderful aesthetic changes that they have, like Bonnie has really, really greasy hair that's all like in her face, but then even though Rochelle has thought to like wear a clip, it looks cheap, it looks like this little pink plastic thing that makes her look almost like a toddler,
I'd say the thing with Rochelle though is like there's nothing like she almost like does not fit in with them. She seems like she's a little more put together than them, and I think that she has more of a sense of decorum than someone like Nancy. Obviously, like she's the one that comes up and she's just like, Nancy's really sorry about chemistry class or whatever, and just like, why doesn't Nancy say that? You're standing right next to her. So I get the feeling that the only reason she's in that group is because she's the only black person at that school. And we kind of see that with just like the way that what the fuck's her name, the Barbie doll blonde, I forget the name. It's like
Christine Taylor plays Laura Lizzie.
Laura Lizzie. That's
what
right.
a name.
I know it's like two first names. It's not even like her. It's like her stage name. I also thought it's really funny that she went on to, like, right after this, she was on Friends. She played the bald woman. Girl. Well, she wasn't bald, but like because she was like Phoebe's friend, and she went to Rachel, and she's like, "Oh, I know that like things are not great with you and Ross, but can I set him up with one of my friends?" And she's like, "Oh, describe her." She's like, "Oh, she has no hair." And Rachel's like, "Oh yeah, for sure, go ahead." Right. And then they meet her, and she's grown it back.
Christine Taylor with full blonde locks and everything. She's like, "You owe me one bald girl." Yeah, I remember that.
Which then Rachel shaved her head. I just thought it was a funny correlation that was the same actress. But yeah, like it's back to Rochelle. It was like it was almost like she, like in any other school, or she was in. The public school system, like she probably would have been thriving. Like she would have been among like people who were more like, ethnically, would receive her better. Accepting. And I think that she would probably be one of like the popular kids. But here, just because she is the only, I mean, I wasn't looking at the extras in the scenes, but I think I remember reading somewhere that like, or just it might have been in the documentary that was on Shudder.
Horror Noir?
Yeah, because Rachel True was on it, and I think she might have, I might be misremembering, but she described the character as being like the only black student at an all-white Catholic school. So I think maybe that was my takeaway, and that's why she's in that group, because she's been shunned by everyone else.
Right, and it's probably a big part of like, I mean, there's also a timidity about her though, like, I mean, with all the diving board antics that she goes into, it seems like there's something she needs to overcome, the fact that, these girls are down there giggling about her and everything like that. And it also makes me wonder, see, this is, again, I have so many questions that I feel could only be expanded upon with a series. I'm going to be beating that dead horse this whole pod, but because it makes me wonder, like, okay, so is that... Like when Laura Lizzie makes that comment to her, where she finally reveals like how she just doesn't like, and I don't even want to say the fucking word, but she and makes it clear that it's a racial problem. It all comes down to race with like what I don't like about you, and there's shock. There is absolute shock on Rochelle's face, and. I think I always just attributed it to, like, that is, like, a terrible thing to say to someone. But I'm wondering if it's also the first time she found out that is why. Or had it spelled out for her.
I mean, must have been.
This is why.
Yeah, because she was just like, do you really want to know why? And she's like, yes, I really want to know.
Right.
And it very well, like, might be. Because, I mean, like, the interesting thing, we don't really dive into Rochelle as a character all that much outside of the stuff with Laura Lizzie, but we can see, like, because we don't ever meet her parents. She's like the only one of the four whose parents we don't meet, but we know that Sarah goes to her house, and it was the same house that they were at the beginning of the movie, and she's like, clearly her parents are wealthy. So I just see this, like, she's it's like from this black family, they're obviously very well-to-do, and they have sent their daughter to this private school, and she's the only non-white person, seemingly, or at least the only black person there. And it might be one of a situation like that where she just hasn't, if she's been among like a higher class of people her entire like childhood. That she hasn't faced anyone blatantly racist to her face like the way that Laura Lizzie was.
I don't know. But I mean, again, like the words are shocking enough to like warrant the reaction that comes up on her face. So, I still think that hair clip does most of the heavy lifting for her awkwardness. I think it really, and also, because also the way she's sitting, when they're all sitting there in that kind of, it's this beautiful shot when Chris approaches Sarah outside during lunch or whatever, and she's referencing the girls that are sitting behind him as the ones who, you know, like rejected her or whatever.
Yeah.
And he turns around and looks at them, and we get that incredible, it's a tableau. It's kind of like this movie's answer to The Last Supper, where they're all just kind of like in various like, you know, poses that are like it would be their album cover if they were a band instead of a coven, you know. And there's this one look in particular that I'm getting from Rochelle that's just kind of like dead-eyed, just kind of like I don't know. They've never looked more awkward than they do. And then like finally when they become I can't call them anything other than the core four, but when they become a core four, and they're moving through the hallway, you know, all glamorous and everything like that. You know, the spell's taken full effect and everything like that, and they're happy and they're jaunty and they don't give a shit and everything like that, and they're completely self-actualized and they all of them look absolutely stunning. And a big part of it is like, you know, they're just working it, you know, like this confidence that they've achieved because of their own self-proclaimed status, which is basically proclaimed to themselves. They don't go around the school, you know, like the pink ladies donning jackets saying, like, we're the coven.
Do you think maybe it's like it's part of the magic, though, that it's almost like put this glamour around them, that just like this is how people see them now? Like maybe that they haven't actually physically changed all that much, but it's like it's almost like we as an audience, we're like taking the perspective of everyone else at the school, and it's just like the magic is being worked on us.
I mean, sometimes, especially at that particular age, all you have to do is kind of carry yourself a little differently for people to notice you in a different way. Like, I mean, that stupid she's all that thing of the all the girl has to do is take off her glasses and let her hair down and put on a pretty dress and walk down the stairs, and all of a sudden, wow, bonerland, you know, like, I mean, I didn't know you could do that.
But
I don't know.
She did still trip on that last step.
So she's still accessible. She's not a total movie star.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that the girls actually aren't as the four of them actually aren't as powerful as they think they are, until it gets dangerous, until it starts to get to the point where they're losing control. And being reckless. Like I feel like the recklessness comes with, wow, we really have reached a point where we can achieve things. I mean, I feel I've observed it myself. I remember in something as stupid as when I was 17 and I went to school at NYU, and I knew that I had gotten into the studio that everybody wanted to get into, and everybody who got into the same studio as I did knew that they got into the studio that most people wanted to get into, the musical theater studio. And we all kind of walked around like we were already Broadway stars, you know, like our opinions mattered more than other people's. We could find out what studios people were studying at and go, oh, good for you. And, you know, like, I mean, it was terrible. It's like ashes in the mouth, you know, like in terms of like, I don't know, the delectable flavors of life that you want. Like, I mean, we were non-people. It was almost like playing make-believe, which also, like, in terms of like these girls in the beginning with their witchness, I think that's what I'm trying to indicate, is that like it's more like they're putting on their mother's clothes and pretending to be these autonomous women rather than actually just kind of like being autonomous women, which I think is something you do when you're young. Before you really kind of know what you're doing, you just kind of fake it until you make it. And that's what I feel like I'm witnessing them do. That's another thing, is that this movie is so incredibly rooted, and this is something that I've really come to appreciate over the years, is it's so incredibly rooted in what I would deem natural human behavior. Like every choice they make and every pitfall that they come across feels completely authentic to me, and like something somebody in that position at any stage of that game would have been or made or, you know, happened upon. Like it's got such a natural course.
It has a more authentic high school vibe to it than a lot of the teen movies, that even like teen horror movies that were coming out. Like, I mean, like, as much as like Scream is amazing and that's my bread and butter. Like that scene at the water fountain, like that is not, those are not teenagers. That's like Kevin Williamson, like inventing a new age of speak that was instilled within that. Like no normal teenagers are sitting around a water fountain and having like that conversation that they did. Whereas like the kids in this movie, that's real. Like the Skeet Ulrich that we see in this movie, like that's Skeet playing like an actual teenager. And like, you know, you reference She's All That, and I think that that's a very much like that. There is nothing realistic about that high school experience at all. I mean, not even like take even away the premise of it, just like the way that like characters and everything are portrayed in it. That I think that like just in terms of like other like horror movies that are just like high school horror movies, I know you'll probably scoff at this, but I actually thought that the Rage Carrie 2 I thought that was a lot more authentic just in terms of like the way that they portrayed the high school students than most of the movies.
I'll hold my tongue until we do that pod, because that's a conversation and a half. Yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that there's like, you know, like, cause it was like, there was like almost this like classist thing where just like you had the rich kids and their parties. But I just think just in terms of like the main character, she seemed like, you know, cause she was like a Nancy type, obviously not as unhinged until, shit hit the fan, but there was an authenticity to it. And I just feel that like that's, you know, when I see the characters in The Craft, I agree that it does feel appropriate.
Yeah, in terms of even the level of performance that we get, like to bring it back to Neve Campbell and Skeet Ulrich, I love the fact that they don't really have any screen time together in this movie, but if they did, I know that I wouldn't see Sydney and Billy, you know? I mean, they're both
I don't even
so
think about
incredibly...
it.
Yeah, they're so incredibly strong as actors. They're so on their game already at this early stage in their lives and in their careers that all they have to do is just kind of like make an adjustment, you know, just like there's a slight shift that you give yourself as an actor, that it can be an as if, it can be, you know, it can be anything, that all of a sudden it informs everything else that you do. And I feel like both of them are doing that in such a successful way. The only other kind of like pairing I could compare to that kind of shift in dynamic, I think it's not a whole horror movie, so please excuse me, but I always want to praise Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald in 16 Candles and the two characters they play in that against the characters they play in Breakfast Club, because they do have scenes together, a lot of scenes together in both of those movies, and I never once feel like I'm watching the characters from the other movie when I'm watching one of those movies. You know what I mean?
No, totally. So, I think that, well, the only exchange, really, if you want to call it that, in this movie is when they're in the chapel and Sarah is just like, oh, here, hold my books. And then like Bonnie needs her books held as well. And that's it. Like they're in the scene together and they're acknowledging each other's presence, but they're not exchanging any sort of dialogue. And I was actually just thinking about that as I was watching it today. I'm just like, you know what, that must have been really nice for them, like the actors, when they did go on to Scream. And it's just like, oh, here's someone that I know that I've worked with, and you already have that rapport with them, and there's like probably like a sense of friendship and comfort that it just made me feel good. It was just like, oh, I love that for them, you know. The only thing I could think of just like actors who work together, but I mean it's like night and day almost, because like these are like the roles that they're portraying are not like authentic like high school students like this, but I was gonna say Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Philippe in like from I Know What You Did Last Summer to Cruel Intentions, because I mean like they have sizzling chemistry and whatever they do together, and obviously like the teenagers that they play in both of those movies are not like realistic at all. I would say that the I Know What You Did Last Summer pair are more realistic than, you know, when we get to the the cruel intention, the
parade.
larger than life roles that they play in that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think even then, like they're such different people in both projects that it's always fun to see them. I would have liked to. I mean, they still could, but I would love to see them reteam in some capacity and do something again. But that's
same way I'd love to see Nev and Skeet in something again.
that would be interesting. But I mean, I think at that point, like I would be too distracted because I'd just be like, it's Sydney and Billy. Whereas like this, like they're like both the characters in this movie are not like the focal point, so it's just easier for me to watch The Craft and not think about Scream as much. You did mention this Zodiac signs earlier, so I wanted to ask you.
Oh dear.
Because you brought it up. But do you have any...
No, I don't. Do you?
Well, I was going to say, because each one of them represents an element, or just like at least when they are doing their circle, when they're just like calling upon the powers. And Nancy is air.
Right.
Bonnie was fire, which I thought was interesting because it sort of like correlates with her burns, her scars. Rochelle was water, which I thought was another interesting correlation just because she's on the swim team. And Sarah was earth. So I'd say if we go by that I mean, can Nancy be anything other than a Gemini? And I say that with as much love as possible.
Like, is she? Like,
she's giving off like major Gemini energy for sure.
The duality of that she's capable of. I mean, again, I started to talk about the simultaneous things she can play, like when she is talking to Sarah, and at once she can seem to be like she's warning Sarah against getting hurt the same way she herself got hurt by Chris before, and she doesn't want to see that happen to her. Yet at the same time, she's kind of like feeding her own self-interest by trying to prevent anything new happening between Sarah and Chris, because what if it works out? And what if this girl who I want to invite into my coven starts dating the guy who hurt me more than anybody, who I still have something, that I feel for?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost... It seemed a little manipulative. Like it did not feel altruistic at all when she was like telling her about it, because she was just like, I heard that you were a lousy lay. It wasn't like, how you would think that like girlfriends would comfort each other and just like, that guy's a dick. Like you do not deserve that sort of thing. It was more just like, you should be mad about this, right? And I'm not saying that that's like Geminis are just out there just being like, how can I stir the pot? But they kind of are. Bonnie, I don't know. I would say, actually, you'll like this. I would say that Sarah is a Virgo.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah, sure. Completely boring and not interesting at all.
Oh, God.
I'm just kidding.
No, self-possessed, and you cross us, we make you pay.
Yeah. And then the other two are like harder because like we don't spend as much time with them. I would probably say that Rochelle's a Cancer. Being the water sign, and Bonnie, maybe a Leo.
Ooh. Huh. I mean, all the Leos I know are adults now, so I'm trying to think about like what my Leos were like when they were teens. Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to ask my Leo friends. But because the thing that strikes me most about Bonnie and Rochelle as kind of like the pips, as it were, the background dancers. If the original coven is a triad, a triangle, then we know for sure that Nancy is the top of that triangle and the other two are at the bottom. Mm-hmm. But like holding her up or whatever, or feeding off her rays. I don't know, whatever. But that's the thing that kills me is that I half the time, I don't know if it's even half, but for a great deal of the time that they're on screen, those two,
Yeah.
they're behaving like shallow, superficial people who I'm like, you're better than that. I've seen you be better than that. I mean, it works for the movie. I'm not criticizing the movie for it, but it makes me crave the series even more. You know, a series about them even more at that time, because it's like, I just want more time with them as they are, as these vulnerable girls who just want to belong somewhere and who just want to feel a little power and a little prettier and a little bit more accepted by the people around them, and just like for people to smile at them, maybe, like those are the people who I gravitated to the same way Sarah does, because I do find it enticing as fuck. Like, I see them and I'm like, with all of the ambiguity that they approach her with in the beginning, like when Nancy goes up to Sarah and Chris falls down and everything like that, she says like, so you want to get coffee? I would have been terrified of all three of them, but I would have said yes in high school. I would have been like, absolutely, let's go get some fucking coffee.
Well, she says, well, I'm expected at home or whatever, and I just love the way that Nancy's just like, we'll make something up.
I know, because she's almost laughing at her, and then Sarah's laughing at her laughing at her and everything. It's just, oh my god, I love spending time with them.
There was also
in that. Yeah.
Sorry, finish that thought, but I might get
that was it. I just love spending time with them. That's all.
Well, I was gonna say the Bonnie introduction, because I think the first time we see her is in the class when she's sitting at the desk and she's looking over and sees the pencil trick. Very Willow, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But Neve Campbell did the thing that we've talked about before, which I love. Actually, I think Neve Campbell has actually talked about this. She was very self-conscious about this decision that she would make in her performances when she was younger, where she does that like breathy thing where she's just like, and she did it in Scream 1 and 2. She didn't do it after that in the Scream franchise, but she did it in The Craft, and she probably did it all the time on Party of Five. I cannot confirm because I never watched that show. But
me neither.
Yeah, she in The Craft, she's sitting at she sees the pencil trick and she's like, and it's like this inhale sort of exhale at the same time thing, and then that's what causes the pencil to fall. But in Scream 1, she did it when Billy and Stu started to stab each other. Like I think it was the first stab, and she was just got like that. And then it was in Scream 2 when Derek and her are sitting under that like twisty tree, and he's this is because you're concerned about my well-being and not because you're don't trust me or anything like that. And she sort of just like looks at him for a second and doesn't say anything, and then she's like, I said, I just don't want to see you get hurt. And I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I can understand maybe why she would be self-conscious about that, but I just like, I know Neve is not listening to this at all, but I just want to let her know that she is amazing, and when she did that in all three of those performances, I fucking loved it. So if Neve Campbell like ever brought back like the breathy gasp, I don't even know what to call it. Like, I'm here for it.
Works.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. In terms of just aesthetic of something other than the characters, also like in this movie, one of the recurring motifs is the snake, obviously. And I felt like, okay, rooted in Catholicism, like the Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit and the serpent coming to like tempt Eve and whatnot and everything like that. And because they're already so clearly from the get-go, like literally studying beneath these like relics of Catholic oppression, like literally, I think the first day of school that Sarah's having, it's not the first day, but her first day of school, as she's walking into the archway, we have that shot of Christ on the cross as she's walking beneath him with the blood dripping and everything like that.
Maybe that's where she got the inspiration for during the
ritual. I mean, it's kind of inescapable. I don't know why there is so much. It's predominantly Catholic symbolism in most cinema that originates in America, but whatever. But in this particular one, like, I mean, even down to, and I was trying to figure out what it means, and I don't know if it could be really, really simple. I think it is more basic than I'm probably making it, but I wondered if you had a response to what the introduction of the aforementioned homeless guy who comes into the home carrying the snake and approaching Sarah the way he does. He's very insistent also. Like, he's very rude and very domineering. Yeah. Acting like he's being completely rational and all the while carrying a snake.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wondered, did he strike you in any particular way?
You know what I'm thinking of now? Because we just recorded our Cherry Picker After Dark for Buffy season 5. So subscribe to my Patreon if you want to check out Buffy season 5 this month. But I was just thinking about how, like, kind of the, like, he was this homeless man, but he also seemed to be, you know, like, have, like, suffer from some sort of mental illness. And it was almost just like the idea that, like, people who are mentally ill, like, might have, like, this second sight of just, you know, things that are, you know, like what holds the power or things like that. So he's almost like he could be seen as this, like, harbinger of doom coming in with the snake, but he's almost like he warns her. He's just like, you know, death is what, I forget what exactly he says, but, you know, he might just have that ability to see the power in her because, you know, he's obviously shut off from the rest of the world. Nobody's going to listen to him. So it's almost like the, back to Scream 2, the Cassandra, you know, thing. It's just like he's able to prophesize things, but nobody will ever believe him or know what he's saying. And I actually felt bad for him because I didn't think that he was a harm or, like, danger to Sarah in that instance. So I was like, that could have been something that could have been explored more, just with, like, that character, or at least, like, other characters like that throughout the movie, because it seemed like they were very, like, happy about it, which I thought was, like, odd, that they were, like, almost celebrating it, like they made it happen, like they, like, committed murder essentially and, like, killed this poor homeless guy who, I mean, like, questionably could have been, you know, dangerous to them, but it didn't seem that way. So I don't know. Long story short, it seemed like there was more that they could have developed with that, and they didn't. Again, maybe that's what the series is for.
I mean, I thought at least he's a harbinger. Yeah. You know, like, he's the man at the gas station. He's Crazy Ralph telling him, "You're all doomed." But he's like, he's the guy at the gas station. Sorry, I didn't even finish the metaphor. The guy at the gas station while you're gassing up before you go into the woods, into the cabin, or to, you know, the ranch, you know, the Texas Chainsaw Ranch or whatever. But with this, I also wondered if he could have been, because he's kind of the other most imposing physical male force on screen aside from Chris. And I wonder if he's also supposed to be a harbinger of, like, that, like, about, like, what is a threat to Sarah's, like, I guess, natural rhythm, as it were, because that's one of the first things she notices in the car, because his snake is not the first snake either. The first snake she notices is just kind of coiled up in the tree, right? Well,
I just assumed that that's the one that he grabbed and he took it into the house.
That one looked so big, though. The one in the tree, wasn't it huge?
Oh, really?
Am I imagining it? I thought it was huge, and then he came in with, like, I thought it was another one, and it was little, obviously snake imagery continuity, but. Yeah.
Speaking of that scene, I just wanted to say, because as I was watching it, all I could think is, like, I miss old movies and how they did not give a fuck about, like, opening credits. Like, they just do them. And it's like, you don't get opening credits anymore. Just, like, you might get the title card and then, like, right into the movie or something like that. I don't even know if they do that anymore. But I love the way it's done here, because, like, we talked about it in Red Eye as well. Like, it was just like, because that's already a extremely short movie, and you're taking up 2 minutes of time to, like just have all the names and everything. But they did it, and in that movie, they were very efficient. Like they showed things that like played into the plot later on. And here, it's not like they were really showing us anything. Like it was just sort of like more so establishing the journey and the characters. But I mean, like you get the 90s soundtrack, and I think like that's also like gives the movie like a life of its own. But it really like it sets the tone for the rest of the movie, and I feel like that's missing nowadays, where we don't get that, and it's just like right into the movie. And I think that I get that they're trying to be more efficient. I don't know what the reasoning is, but I miss it. I want like the crazy, like the shit that like there's literal explosions, and then like you're soaring through the sky, and then you come into Los Angeles and it's pouring rain. Like it was great. It very evocative of just the time and like even like the television series that were coming out in the mid 90s. I was even getting like Melrose Place vibes from it.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
But I also just in terms of the opening credits, also just to piggyback on that from a broader sense, I guess I understand exactly what you're talking about in terms of. I feel like some directors, it's very few and far between, but. Or far and few between. I always forget which way that goes. But few and far between. Yeah. Every now and then it'll happen, and it's charming. But I think the first director who it ever occurred to me personally that really used opening credits consistently was Tim Burton. You will go to like the beginning of his career and throughout the decades. I don't even know if he does it anymore. It's been so long since I've seen a new Tim Burton project, like over a decade. But first 30 years, every single one of those opening credit sequences was a journey. It was almost like a ride in and of itself. And it got you listening at a different frequency, and it changed like the even just like the pace that you yourself were moving at, and kind of brought you to the movie's pace. Like now I'm in control, and I'm going to guide you through this, and I'm going to be in charge of like when you go and when you when you inhale and exhale. You would have loved Nev Campbell.
All I'm thinking of right now is that because like you mentioned Tim Burton and like opening credits, and all I can think of is Batman Returns.
Yes,
I fucking love that movie. Favorite Batman movie of all time, by the way. I don't, I don't care about your Christopher Nolan bullshit, but I will watch this ridiculous fucking movie like till the end of time, and it'll get better each time. But I always remember that the opening scene of just like the cobble pots and like through the Gotham park, and the journey down the sewer. So beautiful. And the score, the Danny Elfman. Gosh, it's so beautiful.
Nobody writes beautiful choral background for Christmas like Danny Elfman, and he did it. He did it for movies that weren't even Tim Burton movies. I mean, he had the Nightmare Before Christmas and Edward Scissorhands, of course, also. But on top of that, there was also Scrooged with Bill Murray, another favorite of mine, another holiday favorite. Dark Christmas. I was going to say
there's also like non-Christmas. He did the Cassandra aria in Scream 2.
That's right. I forgot about that.
It's funny because when I listen to that, I hear like if you listen to it isolated, like outside of the dialogue or anything, I get Batman Returns from it. Like I hear like
totally.
Like,
yes.
It's so good.
It's so funny. I just realized I'm drinking out of a Batman mug for anybody watching this on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Maybe that's why it dawned on me.
Maybe.
Just subconsciously, you put it in there.
There was also, just in the way of authenticity, because I don't know if I have any more to say about opening credits. Although we could do an entire pod just about opening credits in movies. That would be a good idea at some point. That'd be fun. Top 10 lists of opening credits for movies. But for this, another thing that I noticed is when the girls are getting to know each other and they first find out that Sarah attempted suicide, and they look at her scars, and I think Bonnie's the one who's like, "Wow, and you did it the right way." I remember seeing that as a teen and feeling scared, like when I saw that, because I was just kind of like, That is the right way. Like, and it's one of those things, and I don't know if this is even true now for this current crop of teens that we have, in 2023 as we're recording this, but I remember at the time that those were the kinds of things that, like, you knew as a teenager, whether your life was touched, directly or adjacently by suicide, or whether it was just one of those things that you just kind of like found out. And probably at school, it's not the kind of thing your parents sit you down and tell you, now, if you want to do it right, but it's one of those things that, like, somehow, like, someone knows and they tell someone, and then somebody else tells someone and they tell someone, and pretty soon everybody knows. And then you're teaching someone, it's like that. I don't know. And again, that comes back to, like, this weird, authentic high school feel of, like, the topics we talk about that usually don't get put into movies, especially by movies that are made by adults, because they're probably afraid. Like, well, what if we're teaching children how to, kill themselves and everything, like, I mean, I love that we're still kind of like in a potential danger zone that the movie is allowing to exist, because it's the way kids, it's the topics that kids talk about.
Well, I mean, like that. I mean, like that's how I learned about, like, what gay was. Right. Like, it was probably like grade 4. Like, like my parents never, told me about any of that. Like, no family. Right. I might have, like, someone might have mentioned something to me, like, in school, and I might have, like, asked, like, a cousin or something. He's just like, what is gay? What does it mean to be gay? And I don't even remember, like, what the responses were. Maybe they're just like, oh, don't worry about that or something. But
no, I don't think I even asked. I don't think I ever asked.
I like, well, I mean, at that time, like in grade 4, I wouldn't have known. But just about the scars, like, I love that Rochelle is just like, goes to Bonnie, just like, the right way? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, how do you know that?
Yeah. Right. So
it's just like, it goes back to that authenticity. It's just like, someone says it, and then another person is like, well, like, what do you mean? Like, how, like, explain that more.
This game of telephone that we learn, like, and education by osmosis almost.
And I love that the characters in this movie have their own version of the magic box that they go to.
That they shoplift from.
Except for Sarah, because she's the honorable one. Like,
poor Lirio. I thought she didn't have any money, though. Didn't she say she didn't have any money when they asked her to go get coffee?
Well, I think that was just her make something up, like.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember her saying she didn't have any money.
For some reason, I thought she said it. So then when they got in there, and she's just like, "That's $20," and she pulls out a 20. I'm like, oh, liar. But maybe I just misheard.
I don't remember. But it's not important.
Poor Lirio. Yeah. She's just. I mean, nobody is in that shop. No one is making purchases, and I don't know. It's exactly the kind of place I think as a teen I would have loved to have gone into, and then never spent any money. You sit there and just read books, and then when it's time to go, or when they ask you to leave, you haul ass. Yeah. But because would you have hung out at Lirio's? Is there a name for it? I can't even remember.
I'm not sure, but there's a store here. I don't know if it exists anymore, because I know that the place that they had rented for the retail space was closed down. So I don't know if they moved or what, but it was kind of like they had all these, like, Egyptian like antiques and stuff, and it was always fun to go in. I never spent any money there. Maybe once I, like, bought a little something just for fun, but it's just, like, so cool to just, like, go in and, like, look at the stuff. And I never thought about it, but I mean, it seemed to, like, be thriving. Like, there'd always be people looking around, and we talked about this with Buffy when the Giles opens the magic box, and it's like the first day, it's like they're just swamped. Like, they've got like every single member of the gang volunteering their services to help run the store, and, like, it's still too much. Like, they're like knackered by the end of the day.
And also, it's also something I don't do as an adult anymore. It's just, like, go to a shop or a store.
No.
I mean, window shop maybe, but not. Yeah, you're right. Not really. Like, also the internet has just made it too easy. I mean, I'd love also making the time. Like, there just aren't that many shops and stores that I know about that would interest me to, like, block out 3 hours of my day to go and visit.
Exactly. Don't overestimate my desire to stay at home, because like if I'm going out to buy something, to make a purchase, like I'm going with purpose. And that's the only way I'm going to go to like the mall or anything. Or if I am going to the mall, it's because like there's the movie theaters there. So it's like I'm planning to go to a movie, and then, just to kill some time before the show starts, I'll look around in my stores, and then, I'll probably make a purchase, maybe. But and especially with the internet and Amazon and everything, I'm
and COVID too. There's that.
Well, it was, but what's the store called? The shop or the character who runs it?
Oh, Lirio. Yeah.
Lirio, or
That's her
Lirio.
name.
Yeah. Poor Lirio, because I wonder what the overhead is on that space, especially during COVID. Like that it wouldn't have worked.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Do you think she's still alive? I wonder. It's a dangerous thing running a magic shop.
On Buffy, they don't have a long life expectancy.
Disaster.
That could have been
even in this movie, all of a sudden there's this big boom, and I don't even know if it was really happening. Oh, that was another thing I lived for, though. It was, this is one of those things where another case is like something with this movie as a kid, or as a teen, but as a kid, would have made me just kind of like frown or just kind of raise my eyebrow in response. But I love it now. It's when Sarah apologizes profusely and then decides to leave because there's a storm a brewing at Lirio's and everything, and Lirio has this reaction shot where she just goes, Sarah, and reaches out her arm like really dramatically, but she's already yards and yards away, so she's like reaching out her arm is like near I don't know, silent movie acting.
And I had to ask, how did she know her name? Did she tell her at one point? I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it's just she knows because she's got the.
I would buy that. You know what?
Yeah.
Even if she never introduces herself and she knows to call her Sarah, I'm like, well, she's a witch. Give it to her. I like giving good witches more power than it's scripted.
Yeah. Another interesting, since we're talking about Buffy so much, I definitely got the. I definitely got like the kind of the vibe that, or just like that they're trying to say that magic was almost like an allegory for drug use, because there's the scene where Bonnie's mom comes in just like, are you girls doing drugs? And they're just like like no, but like they kind of are, because like it's like, especially for someone like Nancy who just like overuses it, like it's sends her off on her own little path. But another thing that I got from it, more specifically with Nancy and Sarah, was just like the like magic also being kind of like this code for lesbianism. And like there's definitely like lesbian undertones to their relationship, right? Like it's not just me being like everyone's a lesbian.
No. Everyone? Yes. No.
Well, no, that's kind of like think... you're like, they're straight. They must be a couple.
A couple?
Yeah.
They're two girls and they've shared more than 4 sentences with each other. They must be lesbian.
They're lesbians.
No, I number one, I think if it occurs to you, then
yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah.
For me personally, it doesn't really jump out at me, but you make me want to watch the movie yet again through that lens, just wondering, like, is the jealousy? I mean, because here we've been discussing jealousy and about the territoriality that Nancy feels for Chris regarding Sarah's relationship to him, but another angle that you could take is she also jealous that Chris gets to be the one to date Sarah? I mean, and that's another thing that. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, she doesn't really seem to be like all that concerned about Chris or his well-being, or like, because she even says like, "You're nothing to me. Like you're insignificant." Like
Yeah, but the lady doth protest too much. You don't bother to scream, "You're nothing to me," to someone who really is nothing to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like nothing in a sense that like it's just like he's obviously an obstacle. Like if we're looking at it through that lens, like he would be an obstacle for her. But it was almost like an insult at that point that that he would make that assumption, and people were like, no, like it's not even about you, because like I think that like when she kills him, she's more so like annoyed by him. It's just like I just want to like get you out of the fucking picture. But when she tries to kill Sarah, like it's personal. Like there's more to it than just like a quick like toss out the window.
Yeah, it makes me so sad to see her apology, like her initial apology, at the end, like when she's finally starting to realize, oh shit, I might not be holding all the cards after all, after all the shit, all the glamour that she has provided in Sarah's home to like just subject her to and everything. And now Sarah's actually starting to punch back and use Manon, to like work through her and everything like that. So, I mean, and that'll hit, Nancy where she lives, because I think Manon was kind of her thing up until that point. So, and also to know that I would never want to know that the deity that I was channeling was pissed at me, because then it's like, oh fuck, now okay, I just lay down and let it happen. Just okay, fine, just do whatever you're gonna do. Give me snake fingers, give me bugs out of my clothes. I don't know, I deserve it. Just come on, fine. But but when she starts to apologize to her, Fairuza Balk has this ability. I mean, she naturally has a vulnerability that is just forthright, and has been forthright on camera since she was a little girl. It's why she was such a good Dorothy in Return to Oz, and this isn't even the first witch I ever saw her play. I saw her in one of my favorite Halloween specials, movies to behold. It was a TV movie back in the day, called The Worst Witch. Did you ever see this?
No.
Did I ever talk to you about this? She was a little girl. She was the worst witch. It was Harry Potter before Harry Potter. And basically like little girls going to school learning to be witches and cast spells and all that. And this whole school was run by Charlotte Ray, Mrs. Garrett from Facts of Life, who was, like the Grand High Witch. But she was good. And her school mistress, who was very severe and hard on her, was played by Diana Rigg, who we last discussed in our Last Night on Soho pod. Yeah, Diana Rigg was so good too. She was all stern and like, get out of my sight! And, all that kind of character. And it's the TV movie's remembered. It's lived on in infamy on the internet every Halloween because there's a meme-ified music video that Tim Curry sings about Halloween, because he plays kind of the Grand High Wizard or whatever, and he comes to visit them and goes, "Welcome, you witches," and just sings about every heart will shudder, and just sing anything can happen on Halloween. And it's got some of the worst, not even green screen, like blue screen going on behind him, where there's like polar bears and whales and I don't know, just weird National Geographic B-roll stock footage that they have running behind him. Anyway, it's on YouTube for free. Stream it if you want. It's in its entirety on YouTube. I think I watch it every year at Halloween time. I don't often, reserve things for that particular period. I watch horror whenever. Yeah. But that's one thing that makes me feel autumnal, and it's not scary at all. It's an English produced TV movie that's cheap AF, but so heartwarming. Anyway, that might have been my first introduction to Fairuza Balk, if it wasn't Return to Oz. I forget which came first. I think it looked like that came second. Because I was 86. But I don't know what I saw. I don't know what I saw first. I don't know which one I saw first.
Fairuza Balk was also in Valmont. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't.
Valmont it's the dangerous liaisons that wasn't dangerous liaisons, and she played the Uma Thurman character Cecile. But I think maybe for like other people that are that's Cruel Intentions. Right. Cruel Intentions like the teen version. So she would have been the Selma Boyer character. Right. But it looks like Meg Tilly is the Reese Witherspoon character,
or the Michelle Pfeiffer character, depending on which movie you're watching.
Yeah, and Annette Bening is the Sarah Michelle Gellar / Glenn Close, we'll say.
Right.
Yeah.
Fuck. Oh, I gotta watch that now.
We may as well just say now. It's like spoil it for the even though we're in May and the Buffy season 5 episode hasn't come out yet. Next month's Cherry Picker After Dark is going to be Cruel Intentions. So
look forward to that.
just so you know now.
Right.
Yeah.
So Fairuza Balk, I had a point and I got completely lost just going down her roster of child actress.
We're all over the place in this one.
Her.
Yeah.
I know. But I love watching her just because I also took next to no notes just because I watched the movie. I wanted to watch the movie. But anyway, she... like I said, strange, effortless vulnerability, but that doesn't mean that she is always put upon. Like everything that she does seems to come out of reaction to something that's happening to her, regardless of whether it is overtly aggressive or whether it's like very, very still and seemingly compassionate with a question mark at the end of it. Yeah. But when she's apologizing to Sarah, I almost forget what follows, which is the madness and the stabbing and the I'll kill you and the this manic quality that she brings, where she completely unleashes herself because she doesn't want to be bound by Sarah. She doesn't want someone to be more powerful than her. And she just like I get the impression that she hates nothing more, as much as Sarah in that typical Virgo, this is a Virgo quality. We don't mind being subservient to people or being, kind of like working under someone if we respect the people that we're working under. But if we don't respect you, we're not going to want to work for you. We're going to take the lead ourselves and try to get as many people on our side because it needs to be done right. Yeah. And that's totally Sarah. But
well, I'm glad I correctly.
Yes. That's one particular trait where I definitely identify with her. Yeah. But as far as watching this, because it does feel like a prison, a perceived prison that Nancy will only go to kicking and screaming and thrashing and stabbing, and,
which I mean,
salivating.
Ironic, just given like where she ends up by the end of the movie. But I like when you don't take notes. I think you should do that more often. I prefer your insights when you just come to them organically rather than just like, these are the notes I'm gonna hit. Not that you do that specifically. Yeah, that's very Virgo.
Sometimes it expedites things. Like this is a longer form. Like we can just talk freely about the movie. But when we're talking about a series, for instance, like it's harder to
totally.
It's harder to remember things and bring them up.
But everything you just described about Nancy there, like it's just like, again, it's that like conditional friendship where it's just like, I'm sorry, but only like if you do everything that I say. And it's almost like it's very Eric Cartman again. Like I love bringing everything back to South Park and Cartman, but it's like, I'm sorry, because it's just like, you got caught being a shitty person, and you have to apologize to make sure you get what you want, and then you don't, and then you're just like, well, fuck you, right. So but I love the way that she plays it, just because I think that Nancy as a character is able, like there are not many moments in the movie, but when she has them, like she's able to draw so much empathy with what she's experiencing. And I think like we especially see that in the scene with her stepfather. And there's she's very protective of her mother too, even though her mother's like kind of a monster. But there's just that moment when like he's starts to have a heart attack, because I don't think that she's making that happen right then and there. I think that that's just like the wheels have already been set in motion by the group well before that. But she's just standing there and she's like staring at him, and she's just kind of like standing her ground. And just being like, don't you touch me. Like, don't you touch my mother. Just like she has that look on her face. And, we see her like come back to the trailer, and she's like in her room with the leaky roof. And it's just like, it's like you feel bad for her. Like if she wasn't such like a shit disturber. I mean, like that's why like a series like you pointed out would be a great way to like explore the character beyond that. But we do get another great moment from Rochelle actually is right
Yes,
before this
yes.
when everyone's like wish has come true except for Nancy, and she's
Right.
just annoyed, and she takes off, and they're like, what's with her?
Yeah.
And Rochelle's just like, oh, she's just upset because she's white trash. And I told her,
Well,
like,
she does because her spell's not
yeah,
working.
yeah.
And she's like, well, what did she wish for? And she's like, well, I don't know, to be less white trash or something. I don't know.
You're just like, but
Doesn't
honey,
even
I
know.
told her, it's like, you're white.
Yeah. Right. Such fun. Yes, could have used so much more of that. I could have used 22 episodes of this group. But you know what? The tragedy ultimately, like, and this is another thing that just like lends itself to the truth that's being depicted and shaped. Is, I don't know, maybe the nature of some friendships, and I don't want to bring anybody down, but I mean, you know, a lot of friendships don't last, and particularly friendships from high school. You know, like some friendships like actually start earlier than high school and end in high school because people start, you know, determining who they're going to be, and people lose touch, or people just make decisions or whatever. And one of the things that kind of breaks my heart toward the end is because you talk about the conditional friendship from Nancy, but I feel like it's also absolutely true of Rochelle and of Bonnie, because again, it just is like we just saw Nancy make what seemed to be an apology in earnest and then turn on a dime when it's not working to her advantage and she just wants to stab the shit out of her. Same thing in a microcosmic way happens as Bonnie and Rochelle are in the driveway and Sarah's moving away and everything like that, and they're apologizing and they want to know, does she have her powers and everything?
Oh, she's
like
not
that.
moving away.
Oh, I thought that. Why did I think she was moving away?
Well, I think that her father was just like, we're doing some work on the house, probably because it got destroyed during the whole Nancy thing. I don't know. No, because they didn't allude to her moving away. Cause,
for some reason. Me reading into things.
Because they said they're like, oh, we want to hang out sometimes. And, like, you know, if she was moving away, they would never
that's
see
true.
her
That's true.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. Okay. Sorry, I'm tired. Anyway, so she's not moving away, but they're not friends anymore. But they come over and they start apologizing in, you know, what seems to be earnest, or at least earnest for them, because they are a little shallow, and so it doesn't run that deep, but it seems relatively sincere. But then once she, you know, tells them, like, you know, basically, no, hold your breath until I make up my mind, you know. And they start to walk away, and I forget who says it to who, but one person says to the other, like, she probably doesn't have any powers anyway. And the other just goes, and they just kind of like laugh it off. And I'm like, oh my God, you haven't fucking changed. Like, after all of that bonding and all of that closeness and all of that perceived friendship, now you're still like giggling about her having a disadvantage, or even the thought of her having a disadvantage the way you do. Like, fuck you, guys.
I just say, like, I actually felt that characterization from them was like inauthentic. I guess it's out of character, but it felt weird to me because I didn't really get that vibe from them through the movie. Like, they started out as nice people, and the only thing that was sort of like changing them, like, they didn't seem to be as corrupted by the power on the same level as like Nancy was, or just like, you know, when they were starting to be awful to Sarah, it seemed more so just because of like Nancy's influence. So like, you know, what I saw was like genuine friendship between them earlier in the movie, and it didn't feel like it was forced in a way that, you know, it might have been with Nancy and Sarah. So yeah, that always just seemed weird, and I think it was like almost just like a very written way to show that the audience that the parents weren't killed, because it was like, I mean, it was so heavily implied that everything that Sarah was experiencing in the house at the end there was part of the glamour. So it would almost felt kind of like cheap for, I forget which, I think it was Rochelle, that's just like, because she's like, hi, Mr. whatever the fuck Sarah's last name is, and they're just like, you do know
Bailey.
that Bailey. You do know that, you know, that was part of the glamour. Just like, well, no shit, right. Sherlock. He's clearly alive right now. It was just like one of those things that was like she was not saying that to Sarah for Sarah's benefit. It was just for the audience, and it felt like such a like don't stop treating us like we're stupid. We know that the parents weren't actually killed in a plane crash, and it was fake. So it was almost like they just did that. They're like, well, that's such a weird thing to come back, because she doesn't even like really apologize for it. But they're just like, well, it would be cool if we can get together. So I mean, I almost wish that there was a better resolution for those characters than what we got. But at the same time, I kind of like how badass it was for Sarah to have that moment. But
Sarah can't bring a branch down on them if they're genuinely contrite.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't have like Laura Lizzie like show up in the driveway. Like she has no reason to be there, because it would be cool if like they threw a branch down on her. Or something like that. Also, I did want to ask you about Laura Lizzie, because there's the scene.
Oh God.
Well, what's I guess the spell or the wish for Rochelle is just like, as long as Laura Lizzie was gonna be awful to her, like her hair was gonna continue to fall out. So
sure.
I don't know what you made of like the scene at the end when like they show up at the party and Laura Lizzie's wearing that awful wig, and she's just kind of like, hey, Rochelle, how are you? And Rochelle's just like, whatever. Like, why are you talking to me? But it was like, was that her almost like kind of like trying to make amends, or just like be a better person? Because it was never explored beyond that. That was like the last time we saw her.
No, it wasn't.
And it almost felt like...
It would have been interesting if it had been,
Yeah. It almost felt like... I think like if I had a complaint for both Rochelle and Bonnie, is that like their arc was not complete. And like there was so much work put into it throughout like the beginning and the middle of the movie, that for it to just get kind of thrown away by the end there. They obviously learned a lesson, because, you know, but maybe not, because they were still bitchy by the end. So that's probably what I don't like about it.
That's an interesting critique for this movie. And I feel like I've been moving toward it, like the whole pod, just saying it should be a series, because then you can expand upon everything we're discussing. Because you brought up that moment with in the car when Bonnie and Rochelle are sitting in the back seat, and Sarah's like, Bonnie, you used to be nice, and now you're just, you know, shallow bitch. And I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, we've set it up beautifully. And Nev has done an incredible job, like, playing the pain of it while those needles are going into her back and everything like that. And then the effect of, like, you know, the spell and them just kind of brushing, you know, the skin off, the gone are the scars and everything like that. And then she gets to come in school and, you know, wear, even, I've remembered her wearing a lot less than she was actually wearing.
Yeah. My pedicure
I thought she had like, I thought she had like spaghetti straps and like maybe a low cut thing, and then like something backless to really show it off. And really she's just wearing like a tank top or something, you know, like it's impactful because she wouldn't have been able to wear that, you know, without being self-conscious about her scars. But it's all set up so beautifully, even to the point where like she has that triumphant smile as she's like brushing her hair away from her face and stuff like that, because she's getting noticed and stuff. And then the next time we see her within that context, she's being told she's become shallow. It would have been nice if there had been a scene or two or three where we get to see kind of like the beauty turn ugly, you know, like just see her treating, like, even if there was someone who she was nice to before who she's suddenly kind of dissing or not paying attention to because guys who are more important are paying attention to her now. Things like that, you know, would have been, I would have
which they didn't have.
They would have only,
they didn't have time for in whatever span this was.
Because it's a movie and it's a short movie.
Yeah, but I will say that for the performances of Rachel True and Neve Campbell, like, they make these characters memorable despite them being underwritten to a point that, you know, like you come out of this movie and you really remember this foursome. So much so that they've got their own Funko Pops. You know, that's how much of an impact they've had on pop culture. So it really is just a testament to their talent. And I mean, obviously we know what Neve Campbell is capable and has gone on to, but I don't really know like much about Rachel True's career. Do you know anything else that she's done?
Nothing that I've seen. I remember seeing her. I remember seeing her in Horror Noir when she was discussing, her role, and then like the greater kind of like arc of the presence of black characters in horror cinema and things like that. It made me realize I don't think I've seen her prior to that. I'm looking at her.
Half Baked is the only other thing that's just, like, at least on her like known for listing.
She's going to be in Half Baked 2.
Oh, there's a sequel.
So that's coming.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a sequel. It's an upcoming project on her IMDb, I know.
Interesting.
But yeah, and she was on a show called Family Reunion that I saw. She was only on one episode. She was a guest star though, and she's good. You know, she's great. I love watching her. But I'm trying to see if there's any other movies of hers that I've seen. I didn't see. Oh God, I didn't see Sharknado: Heart of Sharkness.
Which one is that?
I don't know. It's the one she's in. It was released in 2015.
Well, they usually have the number of which one.
And she's in the second one. No, but this one doesn't have a number. She was in Sharknado 2, the second one. So there's
that's
that.
helpful.
Was she in the first one? See, I only saw the first Sharknado, so I haven't seen.
I saw like
Sharknado
half
yet.
of it.
Ooh, she did an episode. I have to rewatch this series. She did Noah's Ark. It was kind of like the answer to Queer as Folk for like the black community. It was a really, really good show. I got to go back and revisit those episodes. Daryl Stevens, oof, beautiful. Let me see, anything else? She was on an episode of Dawson's Creek in 2001, I guess. And I'm looking at other things. Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of titles. And then like guest spots on stuff like she was in Nowhere, that Greg Araki film that nobody remembers. I remember it though.
Okay. Well, I guess on that note, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up about the craft before we get to picking some cherries?
I wouldn't be against a requel.
You mean like to fix, like to ignore the one that came out already? And even though like we're judging it, we haven't seen it, but I mean like...
this is the thing. Make it work. Like, Marvel did it with Thor Dark World. That was nobody's favorite Marvel movie, but they incorporated it into Avengers Endgame, and all of a sudden you're valuing it as a piece of, like, we're not going to ignore it. We're not going to pretend it didn't happen. It happened, but we're going to use it in a way, like, same thing. All I can do is think MCU at this point. I'm sure there's are there examples in Scream, like things that they didn't retcon but that they actually revisited and said, yes, that happened, and this is why it's relevant, kind of thing, like reintroducing elements of, I don't know, Screforum or Scream 3.
Well, I mean, would you like want a requel, or would you just want them to like start fresh with a series, kind of like what they did with like from Buffy the movie to Buffy the series? Because obviously you're gonna have to, unless you're just bringing back these characters again, or just starting fresh with new people. They don't even have to be the same characters, but just like the same kind of archetypes. I'm
too much in the same way with Buffy. When I saw the movie before I saw the series, I'm too tied to the movie to be open to a brand new series with a brand new Sarah and whatnot. I don't need the roles to be recast. What I'd really like to see is these women as adults. Where are they? What have they learned? What do they have to come up against? And how many of them have kids who were the age that they were when the original craft?
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there, because I mean I don't want to see kids. And this is like part of the problem with the requel is just like, why does like the baton need to be passed over to another generation? Fuck that. I'm not interested in kids. I'm not like, I've heard like people have talked a lot about like, if they ever, if and when they bring Sydney back to Scream, it's going to be like about her kids, her daughters. And I'm just like, I'm not interested in them. I mean, on paper that might sound nice, but I'd much rather, if like you do revisit something like The Craft, I'd much rather just see a story about these 4 women in their adult life now, in however old they are, in like their late 40s or 50s, and explore that. Like, you know, we're already in a time in Hollywood where women who are of a certain age aren't being represented enough on screen. You know, you do have like your Jamie Lee Curtis's, you know, coming back and doing, you know, Halloween and Everything Everywhere All at Once, but it's few and far between, like we keep saying. And, you know, I don't need to see like the younger generation or just like the offspring of these people. I want to see these 4 characters, if they come back and then like were to revisit that power again and where they are in their life. And, you know, they don't even need to have kids, but it would just be interesting to see them. And if they do have kids, they could be so incidental, just like in the, like, oh yeah, the kids are fine. You know, I got a sitter taking care of them while we do spells.
No, but see, then we get a situation like, I don't know if you've ever seen Grace and Frankie. I watched like the first 2 seasons, and I remember what I loved was watching Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin and Sam Waterston and Martin Sheen and everything, because I'm like, oh my god, they're hilarious.
That's generations ahead of this. Like they're these.
But let me make my point. They were written very, very funny and very, very interesting and very, very, that there was dimension that was being mined episode after episode. And then we'd get to their kids, and I found their kids to be so boring. And
well, they don't have them in there.
No. The answer for me is not eliminate kids. The answer for me is like, why can't we write everybody to be equally interesting? Or at least, if they're not interesting, don't let them occupy as much screen time. They don't have to not be there, but they don't have to be on screen the same amount of time as their elder counterparts when they're not as interesting. Let's go with what's interesting and follow that. Now, I'm not saying that all 4 of these women in The Craft have to have children. In fact, I don't want them to, because especially in Nancy's case, I'd be like, wait, what? How did that happen? Like, did she fall in love with her psychiatrist over in the facility that she was being housed in? Like, what happened?
Well, I mean, am I allowed to reference a spoiler? Okay.
Well, I mean, it's on a pod, so if people don't want to hear the spoiler, fast forward, like, I don't know, 60 seconds? I don't know. How long is this going to take?
20 seconds.
Okay, 20
yeah,
seconds.
The new Craft movie, the main character, the main girl, it turns out that she's adopted and Nancy is her mother. And we see Fairuza Balk at the end of the movie. I haven't seen it. I just, like, watched one of those, like, ending explained videos. So Nancy does show up at the end because she goes to visit her in the mental hospital, and that's it. She just goes in and Nancy looks up and the movie ends.
Oh.
I don't remember hearing like what the connection is or like when it happened. Obviously it was before the movie that she was pregnant, but she has a daughter. So if you want to see the daughter.
Oh wait, so she's her birth. What? Okay, that's just
anyway.
Stupid.
That
can be retconned.
We don't need to.
Maybe that can be retconned. Yeah. I don't know, but anyway. So what Zack just said, it's stupid. If you're tuning back in,
I didn't say it. I'm just
no. I mean, not that Zack is stupid, but he just said something that happened that was stupid. It was a stupid decision that was made. So yeah, we can retcon that anyway.
Right.
But what I would like, if there are, because, you know, I don't know, find out what the statistics are. Out of 4 women, how many would have children and give that many children? And have them figure in however, like, the writers think it will best serve the story. But yes, ultimately, at the core of this, we want to see these women and see what them interacting with each other is going to be like. And let's even explore some things we didn't get to explore in the movie, like everything that you and I feel that was, you know, we missed out on, like more time with Bonnie and with Rochelle, you know, things like that. I'd appreciate that kind of thing.
Yeah. Just have them get together. Just have them get together for like a glass of wine or whatever, and just like
no. And then they just kind of for old. See that because then it's like, and now let's cast a spell just for old time's sake. Get a little
do it,
loopy,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, I hate that shit. That sounds so first.
Rather than some prophecy that just like they all come together again. Anyway,
let
us know your requel idea. And I'm just saying that they
Your
had to.
equal ideas.
I just want to see them like on good terms, even if it's for like 5 minutes.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
If there could be something real. I mean, again, as adults,
Yeah.
there are going to be things that carry over, that you carry from when you're a teen into adulthood, but there's also things that you can change, that you can heal. I'm just so scared that they would get somebody wrong, one of the 4 of them wrong. I'm just thinking about like, and just like that. Did you see any of that?
I don't watch
the
that
Sex and the
shit,
City requel. Oh my god. Okay, all I
just
can
know
say
that
is
Samantha's not there.
Yeah. Although they don't write her out necessarily, but like.
Oh, do they do the Deborah Messing thing where she's just having a nap, or?
They do. They do the thing where she is the pile of coats, but no, I completely lost train of thought. Now I'm just thinking about Deborah Messing as a pile of coats.
You're just talking about how and then whatever the fuck.
Oh, and just like that, and just
yeah.
like that. No, what I will say is like, because I don't want to linger on it, but I watched it. I watched every episode of that frickin' season at a dead run. Like I went from beginning to end because I couldn't walk away. It is a collision, crash, like mob scene or disaster scene of a series reboot or requel, what have you, that you cannot look away from. Like if you start it, you'd better get comfortable because you're gonna have to finish it. And then when it's over, you're gonna need a shower for the inside of you. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, what did I just do? And that's how I was anyway. And now it's got renewed for another season, and I know at some point I'm gonna see it. And I don't want them to do that to The Craft. I want.
Okay, great. No, whatever the fuck.
And just like that.
No, and just like that. Noted. Anyway, if there's anything else that we need to talk about, we can move along.
There's always more, but let's move on.
Okay, let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
Cherry on top.
Who are you feeling?
I mean, there's only one.
Oh Jesus!
As far as I'm
okay.
concerned,
Who is it?
It's Nancy. Who are you gonna say?
I like them all. Like I think there's a case to be made for Sarah, but Nancy she should not be as watchable and as entertaining as she is. But
Yeah.
Fairuza Balk is everything. So yeah, I agree. I concur.
Okay, perfect. So cherry picker, last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Evil Dead Rise. I nominated Jessica. Edward, you nominated Aunt Beth. Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the total came to 660 for Jessica versus 135 for Aunt Beth.
Ooh, if only I had 129, you would have had 666.
Did you just do that math
That
real
would've-
quick in your...
Yeah, it's 6.
Oh, yeah, okay,
it's
yeah,
only
you're
6.
right. That's quick math. I can't keep up with that. All right. Jessica Browning. I vote for Jessica simply because I felt horrible for Beth being pregnant and not wanting it, going to her sister and then getting caught in a blood path hellscape, and the fact she survived and saved the little girl. I mean, that's pretty badass, even if she was a shitty, self-absorbed sister. I also cannot fucking wait to hear Eddie's reasoning on this one. Haha, love this podcast and both you guys.
A lot of people feel like Beth is a badass. I was shocked. I was getting in my DMs, people just kind of like, Beth's a badass. What's wrong with you? And I was just like, that was the sentiment.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, first of all, thank you,
listen to the
Jessica.
pod.
Thank you,
Thank
Jessica.
you, Jessica.
And I mean, I don't think that she's a badass at all, but I also don't think that she's punishable by death in a cherry picker. So I'm kind of like in the middle there with you. But let's see what else people are saying. CL. says, I choose Jessica, but was surprised the kid who not only opened the book, but also played the obviously evil recordings isn't an option. Also, Jessica's sister was far more deserving, in my opinion. Quite obnoxious. Are we sure Jessica was even possessed? Maybe it's just a clever excuse to plead insanity. The demon made me give my sis a haircut. I mean, she did drive for hours all the way to the cabin. Possessed. Suspicious, but either way, that was quite the opening. Good for you, Jess. Slay Queen.
I'm so confused.
I got confused too. I think that they're saying that the girl at the beginning who was not Jessica was Jessica's sister. I don't know if that was established. It just seemed like she was her friend.
I thought she was just a friend.
Yeah.
There was no resemblance. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, sucked. Says Jessica for sure. She had her AirPods in, ignoring the craziness, and went off about her day in the morning, pretending that she doesn't live in a building filled with deadites. I know this person all too well. Beth is my goth bae. P.S. I would love for you two to talk about the slasher Cherry Falls, starring Brittany Murphy. I think it would be hilarious conversation, and I'm sure many haven't seen it in years. I've never seen Cherry Falls. Yeah.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. Okay.
I mean, I do love Brittany Murphy.
Me too.
Sean P. Sadly, I haven't been able to see the movie yet. My mother's been sick for a few weeks, and I'm waiting for her to recover. This unfortunately means I have to be that person for a change and choose Jessica because she has the most votes. Hope you guys have a great week. Well, we're hoping for the best for your mother. I hope that she has a speedy recovery. And this was 3 days ago, so hopefully, I mean, by the time this is released, it'll have been a while. So hopefully everything's all good by then. But you don't have to vote. If you don't want to. So
yeah.
Don't go with the crowd on it. Just save your vote for the next one. But thank you, Sean. Kaylee can't wait for this pod, which is out now, so now you can listen to it. So thank you, Kaylee. Michael Begley, Jessica. I suppose I'm dying to hear the reasoning behind Beth. Which we heard. We've heard, yeah.
Yeah, I made my case.
Movie Maniac.
Zach does not want to hear it again.
Well, I mean, I heard it for 2 hours. But
I know.
I think Movie Maniac 03. I think choosing between the two was hard because there are zero likable or unlikable characters in this movie, but I chose Beth mainly because I feel like I should care about the main character, and I couldn't care less. I think the hype for this movie was way too high and kind of got my expectations through the roof. That's fair. I kind of feel like the same thing. Like there were no like overly unlikable or likable characters. Everyone was just kind of straddling the middle ground there.
Except for the boyfriend who I would have chosen if I weren't voting my conscience, voting my heart. But the boyfriend of Jessica, whatever his name was in the beginning.
Caleb. Yeah.
That guy.
Well,
yeah.
you don't always have to.
That you remember his name.
You don't always. I mean, I try to, I circled through all of the potentials, so I had to. Lord Flocka T. This one is really fair. I'm assuming that's said with sarcasm.
The sarcasm, yeah.
Yeah. Crazy Craft 900. I liked this movie. Got to see it in cinema on first day it released in UK. I would vote for that stupid monster at the end. It was so bad. By the way, I love your horror podcast. Thank you, Crazy Craft 900. Jack Ellis. Beth is a icon. She shouldn't have even been a option.
Oh, jeez.
Kimberly Monroe. I suppose it's easier to want Jessica to die more than Beth because she became a deadite and killed both her friends, whereas Beth doesn't do that. She's actively tries to save her sister's kids, so I'll have to go with Beth. But if there's any reason not to choose Jessica, it's that fucking title card. I want to go see the movie again just to witness that title card another time.
Applause. That's great.
Jalen, Jessica, of course. How do you not smell all of that blood and guys going on to your car? Did her talking on the phone?
Guts.
Yeah, guts. Probably. Going on to your car, did her talking on the phone make her lose her other senses? Awareness was on F. Let's not mention her forcing her sister to come despite her wanting to back out. LOL. Anyway, yeah, obviously Jessica. Amethyst Frost, voting for Jessica because she was a throwaway character in the unrelated wraparound segment of the actual movie. I didn't care much about Beth either, but she was whatever, fine, I guess. A Mary Sue is a female character who lacks flaws / is perfect at everything she does. I get the sense that professional male writers accidentally write Mary Sues because they're trying really hard to make a female character competent or at the same level of male characters. So because it was mentioned in the episode, I don't think Beth qualifies as one because she's so bland and only had 1 or 2 skills she excelled in. Eddie made a great point that she locks Deadite Ellie out in the hallway where Ellie kills all the neighbors. A Mary Sue wouldn't do something that makes them look like such an asshole. Mary Sues are supposed to be likable and perfect. Of the movies covered on the Cherry Picker recently, I'd say Lisa from Nightmare 2 is closer to a Mary Sue than Beth. What's her name is. Lisa is rich, beautiful to the extent that she looks like Meryl Streep, super popular at school, the only one smart enough to do any research to fight Freddy, and ultimately uses her writer-given love powers to both defeat a supernatural entity and turn a gay boy straight.
Lisa does spend a lot of time crying, though. A lot of time. Oh, Jesse. Yeah. Like, I don't know. That doesn't feel very Mary Sue to me. But good point.
Craig says all the neighbors on that floor, they were pointless, even being wrote into the script. They did nothing apart from one who had a shotgun. Right. There was a lot of potential nominations.
There was.
Thomas Baker, Jessica, just because. And Silent Saturn says, guys, a Mary Sue is a perfect female character that's good at everything, has no flaws, and masters every situation with ease and without trouble, and therefore is unrealistic and unrelatable. Beth is clearly not that. If anything, Eddie faulting her for her stupid decisions is, unbeknownst, faulting her for being less of a Mary Sue than he'd like her to be. Anyway, that term is just a buzzword for incels who don't like female characters in the lead and doesn't really mean anything. I don't think it has any place on the Cherry Picker. Back on topic, my vote goes to Jessica. She wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer.
All right. Well said.
I think, yeah, like I'm just Mary Sue, literary, because now I just want to see in particular, because I saw that it was...
We're into definitions now. We're into strict definitions now. So.
A Mary Sue is a character archetype in fiction, usually a young woman who is often portrayed as inexplicably competent across all domains, gifted with unique talents or powers, liked or respected by most other characters, unrealistically free of weaknesses, extremely attractive, innately virtuous, and or generally lacking meaningful character flaws. Usually female and almost always the main character, a Mary Sue is often an author's idealized self-insertion and may serve as a form of wish fulfillment. Mary Sue's stories are often written by adolescent authors. The term was actually coined by a woman, Paula Smith, in the 1973 parody short story A Trekkie's Tale. So I don't necessarily agree that it's an incel term.
They probably claimed it now. I think they're the ones who kept it alive, but even though they didn't originate with them. But what's interesting about that is what's got me hooked on this is the meaningful part of like a character that doesn't lack flaws, but a character who lacks meaningful flaws, meaning she can be flawed, but not in any way that it does actually endear her in a genuine way to an audience. Am I wrong in assuming that? I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
That sounds that sounds fine to me. I mean, I was the one that brought up that, you know, she's kind of, you know, just based on my understanding of like what they said in Scream 2022, when they're just like, the main character's a Mary Sue. They're like, what's a Mary Sue? You don't want to know. And that's, yeah, I just kind of like got the impression from her, just like she was capable, and, you know, she had her own, it was almost like a modern day equivalent of that. So, I mean, there's always room for interpretation, but I just felt like she had that quality, which I think is like a quality that we see in a lot of like final girl by default, where just like you're the final girl by default because you lasted till the end, but by really like not doing anything other than being the one that was not targeted. Because I still think that Ellie would have been the more interesting and more capable badass final girl in that movie had she been the one in Beth's position. But that's just
well,
me.
in the interest of potentially pouring oil over troubled waters, I'd like to also say I'll probably abstain from using any kind of vocabulary on the pod in the future if I don't feel that I have a full grasp on it. Because obviously Mary Sue was not a concept that I use often to describe female characters. So yeah, I don't even remember how it came up in the last pod. But sorry,
according
guys,
to this, there's also, I mean, it works both ways. There's, you know, the term has been applied to male characters as well, though a male character with similar traits may be labeled a Gary Stew or a Marty Stew. So, as far as I'm concerned, we can use the term Mary Stew, but we have to use it when it applies to male characters as well. So I agree, you know, like we should not be singling out just the bland females who are like overly capable without any reason. So, you know, I'll point out a Gary Stew if we ever get to one.
I'll do some more research and try to I'll try to apply Mary Sue in life the way I have with the term bitch, because I'm uncomfortable using that term solely for any women or female identifying people. But I'm very comfortable using it among men and male identifying people.
Well, just like put a little spin on it. Use like biatch.
Yeah, no, but I sometimes when you're angry, you need to just say you fucking.
All right,
but I like using it against men. Anyway, okay, go on.
All right, thanks, bitch.
Thanks, bitch.
So we have to nominate, and I get first dibs here.
Yeah.
So I don't know this character's name. Was it like Harold? I'm trying to think of like what she called him. The stepfather.
Here, let me look. Let me see if I can find him.
Nancy's stepfather.
Does he not have a name?
I'm just like looking through the cast list here. I can't see it. I'm probably just like skipping right by it. But that's who I'm picking. Is Nancy's stepfather. I don't see him on here. Yeah, I see the mother, Grace. But I don't know. You make your nomination. Well, I mean, do I need a reason? He's gross and he's abusive to both of them. You know, he like lifts up her robe and he doesn't pay the fucking electricity bills. So fuck that guy.
Yeah. Or don't.
Fuck him.
And
he even says there's even a thing because the mom's like stumbles out drunk. She's just like, what good are you for? And he's like, you know what I'm good for. And it's like, yeah, fuck off.
No,
fuck
I don't think
off
so.
And die. Yeah. So that's who I'm picking.
Okay. And we didn't really address him a lot. We talked about him in relation to everybody else. But we didn't really discuss him. And
Ray Saunders is the name. According to Google, Ray Saunders is a minor character in The Craft. He's the second husband of Grace Downs Saunders and Nancy Downs' stepfather. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look at you, Mr. Research. Now we know who a Mary Sue is and who Ray Saunders is. But
he's a Ray Saunders.
I'm going to go with someone else who didn't occupy a lot of time in the pod also. I'm going to go with Chris Hooker, Skeet Ulrich's character. Because the character in and of itself is kind of everything that's wrong with not the movie, but everything that's wrong with the school and with society and just like the social dynamics. The fact that a guy like that can go out with a girl and then basically ruin her reputation, before anybody even gets an opportunity to meet her, just with his damning words. He has no powers, yet he has an immense ability to affect the lives and both inner and external of these characters, these core four that we care about. And I don't like that he has that kind of a reach. And then he's no better when he has the spell cast on him. I'm very uncomfortable with this character.
I would say that anything like post spell should not count, though.
But should it not count?
Well, I'm just trying to think here, because it's like he's being like, his will has been taken away from him. So it's like there's
anyone. But the question is, when you're under a spell, is it a uniform reaction? Like, is the spell in the driver's seat and you're the passenger, or does it mingle with impulses you would have and help you gain access to things you would do if this was the way you felt? It's a kind of a muddy water. But anyway, but everything.
So it takes away your conscience, and you're just kind of left with your id. And
the thing is, I don't think the movie knows. I don't know if the movie answers that question for us.
I don't think the movie cares.
I will say, even if we discount everything after the spell, like the attempted assault and the stalking and even the demanding, he's terrible. But the fact
awful,
that but prior to that, he's awful.
Yeah.
Before that, he's egotistical, dishonest, and laughs in the face of broken hearts that he has caused, and I don't like any of those.
And it was such a. I mean, sorry, I'm making your case here, but just like he literally, like, that was his response after like their first date, if you can even call that a date. And all she said is like, I have to get home. And he got so fucking offended by that it's just like he had to go to school and just, like, if they had continued, like, he probably put in a little bit more work, and then, could have, after a few weeks.
She was so into him. He knew it. He didn't have to go that route. It's like he turned on a dime and all of a sudden, like, here I'm going to show you my actual nature, like, this is who I really am, as opposed to, which is probably better for her in the long run, but still, like, the path there, like, dude, if you would have just been a decent person, it was an otherwise lovely evening, like, a few more of those, and you may actually get something genuine, something real, but he's not interested in that because he's a fucking douche. So, and I'm not sad when he dies. I'm not happy that he gets killed. Because that's more.
I'm sad for her because she's upset about it, because like she knows that like she took away his will, or like her spell brought him to that. So she feels guilty, and that's what I feel bad about.
Yeah, and I do actually even feel I feel even worse for not worse than Sarah, but worse than for him. I feel worse for Nancy, just because like now she's crossed that that bridge or whatever, that threshold, and once you've drawn first blood, real blood, because she'd already killed her, or quote unquote killed her step. That's kind of iffy, but like it's not. She's not down a good path from that moment. There's still kind of hope for her prior to that. Like, I feel like she's still straddling that selfishness and selflessness, I'm a friend kind of thing, when she's hearing about what he put Sarah through, and just like, where is he? We gotta get him. Still like, I still feel there's some duality there. But then once he's dead, it's just like, this is all about you, honey.
I guess if I can make one more argument for Ray Saunders, is that his death brought good fortune to the Downs women. So they collected on the life insurance and they moved on up in the world. They got out of that trailer. So that's like you can kill Chris and make Sarah feel terrible, or you can kill Ray Saunders and give Nancy and her mother the life that they've always deserved. But it's interesting. We chose the two people who did get killed in this movie because, I mean, other than the homeless man with the snake, I don't think anyone else bit it. I know people are going to be upset that Laura Lizzie was not a nomination, but
I mean, she's definitely on the roster, but the plain fact of the matter is, and I mean, I've heard people in the past discuss, well, she feels bad, and I'm like, that doesn't solve racism,
I think that
that doesn't undo the harm.
It's
that
almost
she
like
caused.
death is not a suitable enough punishment for her. Like, she deserves to spend the rest of her at least high school years. We'll throw more on top of that with her condition that she now has to live with. That's because that's like that goes into her, like it eats into her purpose and just like what her power is in that high school, and it's like takes it away from her.
Well, also because her actions are so minimal. Like, all she does is start talking in a moderately nicer tone to Rochelle, and the way Rochelle receives it, it's not like, oh my gosh, she's actually being nice to me. It's like, yeah, what? Why are you talking to me decent all of a sudden? What changed? Oh, I know what changed.
I guess the thing that's upsetting is does that mean that since the magic doesn't work anymore, or at least Rochelle's magic doesn't work anymore, does that mean that Laura Lizzie's fine now?
See, this is why I want a requel, because maybe Laura Lizzie is still living in the same neighborhood or something when they all hook it up, and maybe we can find out, did she change? Does she know what a monster she was in high school, and is she I don't know, like an Elle Woods now, what, or a Marsha Brady, if you will, because Christine Taylor, Marsha Brady, that's the first thing I ever saw her in, I think. Or, well, no, because I don't know. I forget what year the Brady Bunch movie came out too. That was in the 90s sometime, but whatever.
All right. Anyway, so you can vote for Ray Saunders or you can vote for Chris Hooker, and that will be on
name.
Patreon if you are supporting me there, Zack Cherry. You can also vote on our Instagram, that's at the Cherry Picker Pod, or you can vote on YouTube in the community tab, the Cherry Picker. And if you are new to the Cherry Picker and you are listening to us, obviously go over to YouTube and subscribe and watch us there. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. And for Patreons, I do want to welcome one new Patreon member. So welcome aboard to Melissa. Thank you for having us.
Barrera?
Ferreira?
Hey, Barrera.
I said Melissa.
Barrera.
Oh, Barrera?
Isn't that her name? Isn't that
well,
her
that's
name?
Sam from the Scream movies, but that's I think that there's a lot of Melissas and
well, we welcome Melissa, whatever. We'll find out what your last name is.
Thank you for making that awkward for me, though. I appreciate that. I
bet you're even better than Melissa Barrera.
And we're just gonna keep digging that hole. But I also want to thank Andre Felix, our editor, who is going to be back very soon as a guest. I won't reveal what that's going to be yet. That'll be the secret, since you already know about Cruel Intentions. But speaking of Patreon and Cruel Intentions, if you do want to support my Patreon account, you can go to that. All tiers get you early access to the Cherry Picker episodes. And if you are subscribed to the Freddy Krueger tier, you will get access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which is our monthly bonus episode. Just reminding you again, this month it is Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 5, but you will be able to go back and watch the first 4 as well. And next month is going to be Cruel Intentions, like I already mentioned. So get on board that. Lots of bonus Cherry Picker and Zack Cherry content. But other than that, Eddie, where can they find you on Soch?
Wow, this one ran long. I'm just making it run longer. All
You
right.
are-
You can look for me on my social media platforms, which are on Instagram, YouTube, and Letterboxd. All of them. Edward is truth. Traditional spelling, all one word, no spaces. How about you,
God,
Zack?
That was gross. Instagram, retro bitch face, all one word. Letterboxd, Zack Cherry. I think there's 2. Just go to the one that's more up to date. Twitter, Zack Cherry 8, and YouTube, Zack Cherry, ZACK. What's going on next week? We didn't talk about it. And I don't
didn't
know.
look.
Your screen is frozen, so I'll tell everyone right now. It's the one where, the school year is over and they're finished high school, but they get to party and it's disco themed because it's from the 80s.
And it has that lady who won an Oscar this year.
Because she had hot dog fingers. Yeah.
And before that, she saw the cherry blossoms in Japan, and nobody wanted that to happen in hens. And yeah. This one is, though, Prom Night.
Prom Night. Yeah. The original, not the Britney Snow one. People were asking which one. It's just like, I don't know.
The one that's...
I'm not ready to delve into remakes yet.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet. Maybe...
unless it's like House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, apparently. But anyway...
But that's Dark Castle.
I know, and it's great. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.